I'm Brad King, and this is Stories in Steel. On this episode of Stories in Steel, we spend the afternoon hanging out in the amazing Lions Drag Racing Museum with artist, designer, and painter extraordinaire Steve Stanford. He talks about his childhood in St. Louis, his time in the military, and what it's like becoming an influence in the automotive culture. This was a lot of fun. Wow! I finally got to sit down with Stevie here.
Oh boy!
Finally got you out of the house. I got you out of the house.
Yeah, I guess the police went away.
That's right.
Stick my head out the door, you know.
So, man, you, I was talking about you earlier, and I said, you're kind of the guy behind the curtain. People know who you are, and they're not really sure about you, but you've inspired so many people, whether you're a designer, somebody who draws things. Me,
I call it contributing to the delinquency.
No, well, but see, with me, it was the striping and lettering in the deal, and most people don't realize that about you. If they know you did that. But most people are into the artwork. They look at you as an artist like, oh no, do you not know what he did before? You go, no, striping and lettering was kind of his.
Well, most people don't go back that far though.
Well, but we're old. It's the old people that know these things.
Right.
So let's go back. I want to go back a ways. I want to go back. I don't even know what inspired you to begin into striping and lettering. So I don't know, were you drawing first? Were you getting in trouble drawing in class?
Well, all of that.
So was it always cars?
Oh, pretty much, yeah. Because, I don't do people all that well. It was always things, but specifically cars, yeah.
Okay.
And that came from reading all the car magazines, and, dreaming and wishing, and, When you're a kid growing up in the slums in St. Louis, man, you don't have a whole lot to look out the window at. So I tend to lose myself in that dream world of print and photos and verbiage and all things automotive.
So that was your world, and cars were always your thing.
Oh yeah.
So when did you kind of start taking it serious?
You mean as far as for making a living?
Well, yeah, were you messing with, like in high school, were you striping friends' cars or anything? Were you, obviously the whole media of art you covered all the mediums here.
Yeah, see, none of that stuff, doing it for other people, that didn't come along until after I left St. Louis, after I left high school, and when I joined the military, I joined the Air Force. Okay. Because I needed a career. I had no skills, no talent that was marketable. I'm an 18-year-old kid doing pencil drawings in his bedroom. Does not a career make, right?
Right.
And so I went in hoping to learn bodywork and paint so I can learn that trade, about hammering on cars and that sort of thing. Fast forward a few years after I got out of the service. Well, before I got out, they put me in a mechanical field, and that field turned into munitions, which I wanted to join the motor pool. I wanted to, again, learn bodywork and paint and do it on the government's dime, to learn a career, because I knew I wasn't gonna be a lifer. This is just gonna be a 4 years and done deal. Well, when that didn't work out and they stuck me in munitions, I ended up having to basically go through the back door and learn how to do artwork and pinstriping after hours. Again, from reading all the car magazines, seeing how to, and I finally found one of those Peterson one-shots, basic bodywork and paint specials, and they actually had a 2-pager on pinstriping, and they showed what a lettering brush was and how it's used, and that was one of the first times I'd heard of Walt Pray.
Okay.
See, because they showed him doing a 55 Buick, and they showed him laying out the tape, for how he held his hand, what kind of brush he was using. Wow, what's a lettering quill? What's a striping brush type of thing, right? These art store, dime store things don't cut it for that. Even the paints. That was back in the days of, this is before one shot for me, it was Sherwin-Williams Bulletin color. Still some of the best paint there ever was, what they call controlled ropiness. So for whatever reason, Sherwin-Williams discontinued that sign painters line, and I finally had to get to one shot and learn how to use that.
But it still had lead in it, so it's still okay paint.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My dummy, I didn't realize that you had to stir the paint once you popped the lid off. So I'm dipping the brush in the stuff. I'm like, man,
all the linseed oil's floating up top there.
I'm like, oh man, everybody's making this big deal about one-shot enamel. This is crap, So,
yeah.
I didn't know it yet to stir the stuff.
Got all the lead at the bottom and the linseed oil on top.
So when I finally got past that little obstacle, okay, that's what that was.
That's great.
Yeah, that worked.
That's great. So, but like 19, 20, where
right around in there.
Right
yeah.
around. Okay,
yeah.
So when did you go, this is what I want, you were still in the Air Force and went,
yeah.
I'm going to do something with this? I mean, is that kind of where?
Yeah. I knew one way or another. Well, okay, a while back, when I was growing up, I knew I wanted to get in this field, like I mentioned bodywork and paint stuff earlier. Well, it became a process of elimination after that. What am I capable of? What kind of equipment what is my situation? Am I able to actually get a job doing this sort of thing? When I was in high school, back in St. Louis, I went to a car show, and I met this guy that had a body shop in the south side of St. Louis. And I was admiring his car. We kind of struck up a conversation. Anyway, I thought that from that, maybe I could get a job from this guy, and so I took a bus down to the south side of St. Us. If you're a black guy and you know anything about south side of St. Louis back then, it's not a real comfortable area that, for us darker skinned tribes on. So I was pretty nervous, but I thought, this is worth it. If I can at least get a foot in the door of this whole automotive career thing. Anyway, so I get down there and the guy misunderstood me. He thought I just wanted to come down and have a cup of coffee and this and that. And I'm thinking, well, I'm kind of looking for a job, So that didn't work out. So that was sort of a disappointment. Anyway, it's been an uphill climb to get to the point where I was finally at least able, after hours in the Air Force at my first duty station, to learn what a pinstriping brush was. And I had guys in the barracks that had their cars out in the parking lot that wanted a little bit of decorations on it. So that's the self-taught part. And looking at that article I was mentioning in the magazines about how to pinstripe, and it just went from there. But the drawing part, I was always drawing, in the meantime, but I wasn't ever doing it for anybody else. This is just stuff on my own.
So a lot of guys start with pinstriping, and then you make that transition to lettering, which is the hardest stinking thing ever. At least it was for me, and I know a lot of guys, because striping's somewhat simple. Lettering, that's a whole different animal. And you inspired me. There was 3 guys that inspired me. You were one of them. And what I really liked about yours is it wasn't the standard 70s funny car type lettering. I mean, there was there's a few guys out there that are really good at that, but it was kind of the look. And it's
See, by the time you come in on that, that's when I was getting later into my career and learned what I was doing.
And it was so unique because it was more of a deco feel. It was a whole different, it's like, what is this? Who is this guy? I didn't know who you were, but I kept seeing your stuff. It's like, who is this guy doing this stuff? This is what I like, because it wasn't the same old thing. What made you go that way? What made you
boredom?
Is that what it was?
After so many years of looking at the whole Von Dutch style chicken scratch pinstriping that hot rodders have been doing ad infinitum, I got bored. And I had different influences anyway. Being slightly younger than most of the old guard at that time, I'm looking at different things like the beginnings of MTV, fashion magazines. LA Style magazine was a huge one for me back then, because they were on the cutting edge of graphics and the scene, Hollywood rock stars and, that whole thing, the art scene. And that was wow for me, because it was different. It was creative, it was imaginative, and none of that look was being transferred to automobiles, because that automobile group wasn't aware of that scene going on.
Wow.
So I said, I can at least get a name. Again, it was just boredom. I was looking for a way to separate my work from everybody else's. I didn't want to be, and I still don't want to be, mistaken for anybody else's work.
Oh, there's no mistaking that. That's for sure.
And that was deliberate.
Wow. Because that whole 80s thing, I loved it. I loved the dry brush thing.
Oh, it was exciting.
Just because it was so weird and different.
The confetti.
Again, you talk about
the paint,
Right, you talk about the Von Dutch thing, and it's like, even now, it's like, no, I don't care. Show me something that's different, because everybody does the same thing. I don't want to see the same thing. I want to see something different. And yeah, your deal was
out there,
way different. Well, there's a lot of colors. All of a sudden, there's pink and turquoise and purples and bright blues, and it wasn't the same It wasn't the same old thing.
Again, that's all that MTV programming. You know, you look at their ads and their videos and everything else, and that stuff just popped. You know, it was exciting to look at. It was not boring, and it suited the tenor of the times. You know, it was a time of K-Rock was just, you know, radio was just coming into its own,
right.
And that whole rock of the '80s thing, and you know, the checkerboard, you know, Vans and all that stuff. You know, the Vans shoes. I mean, it was just neat. And I said, why aren't the car guys doing this? What helped too, I was befriended by this mini truck called Golden State Minis. I ended up doing their back windows and stuff with a real simple graphic logo with the California State Minis. And these are young guys, man. They're like high school guys and early
Right.
college, and they weren't into traditional Von Dutch stuff. They didn't know that from Adam, but they did know the whole modern art thing, and they wanted that reflected on their little mini trucks. And so next thing you know, it was a whole scad of them that. God, it was fun.
Can you stripe on this? What do you want to do? I don't know. Let me have it for a few hours. Let me see what I can do here. And that's kind of
Pretty much, yeah.
So like the mini truck and the Volkswagen guys,
Oh, yeah.
loved what you were doing.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
Now you got the younger generation, you know, the younger stuff, the old hot rod guys. It's
Oh,
the
yeah.
younger guys doing their version of hot rods, and it was a free for all then.
I think Paige Proctor's Squareback was probably the first one I did. Well, no, I take it back. It was the second one I actually did the dry brush look on. And because I was just kind of experimenting with on another buddy of mine's truck, you know, he wasn't in that club. He was just, you know, one of our friends just to hang out. So I did some splash graphics on that and had a blast. In fact, a bit of that truck showed up in one of those Carcraft paint and body issues and stuff. And it showed this hot chick posing next to it. But when Paige brought his Squareback around, that was the first time I did an actual big show sign with that whole look on it. He still has that sign, you know. I'm like, cool. So,
Wow.
oh yeah, I was stoked that he hung on to all that
That's
stuff.
awesome. That's awesome. I saw that car. It was at the Grand National a couple years ago, and they had the Volkswagens in there.
Yeah.
And I took a picture of the sign. It's the sign still
Yeah.
the same sign that you did
Yeah.
a zillion years ago, and it had the dry brush sign.
Oh yeah, it's of its time.
So
you know?
stinking cool. So yeah, and that car still looks as good as it did back in whenever that was.
Well, he
in the
definitely took
80s.
care of that.
Yeah, just sat in the garage under a cover apparently because
Yeah.
it looks great.
That's what happens when they're not exposed to the elements.
Right. So you kept going with it. So did you get tired of the striping and lettering thing? Because you were doing funny cars. You were over at Carter's. So you were at Bill's. How did you end up at Bill's?
Well, I dropped in on him. He knew a friend of mine back in Salt Lake. This black guy by the name of Mike Carson used to have a top fuel dragster, and Bill actually drove for him for a couple of times. It was called the Integrator. And Mike was one of the nicest. In fact, Mike Carson was the guy who ended up buying Ed Ross black 29 with the white stripes on it.
Okay.
Yeah, he ended up owning that. I think he still got it from what I understand. And so he told me, he said, hey, when you get to California, you know, go and look up old Billy Carter for me and that. So I figured, what the heck. And
Go look up Billy Carter when you're in California.
you know, pretty much. And that's exactly what happened. I brought my portfolio with me, and we talked to Bill, and I don't know, we just kind of hit it off. Well, I saw all those articles on Carter Pro Paint in the paint and body books, and you know, with Glenn doing that red Camaro that they were
With the Camaro on the back deck lid there.
I wanted in.
Oh, I so wanted to be part of that group.
myself.
Yes.
You know, I was.
Yes.
I figured at least I do is just show up and say hi, you know. So I did that, and that's how I hooked up. Well, Bill, bless his heart, he ended up after a few months building me my own studio there in his shop, and he'd never done that for anybody else. I mean, I don't know, he saw something in me that allowed me to blossom.
So that's where I first met you, was at Billy's. So that
Yeah.
your office he built that for you?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. What an
That's
honor,
pretty awesome.
You know.
That's pretty awesome.
Wow, Bill Carter.
So you were drawing. So when I came down there, you were still painting stuff. You were still striping
yeah.
letter, but you were doing a lot more illustration work.
Okay,
So-
there's a reason for that. What happened was I noticed that after a while, illustrators tended to get a little more respect than pinstripers and letterers, because the stripers, unfortunately, especially at the time, had a reputation for being paid with like a 6-pack of beer and a pat on the back and I'll make you famous type of thing, right? And too many guys, unfortunately, fell into that, you know, wiping paint on their jeans and well, pray God bless him, but yeah, he was always, I think he used more and more his paint than he actually put on a car surface, right? I didn't want that. But I noticed that the guys, say like Kenny, for instance, Youngblood, got a lot more respect by doing stuff for publications, for the magazines. And I wanted that image. I wanted to kind of step it up just a bit. And I was a bit insecure because I didn't go to art school or anything. So, and I thought most of the guys that were doing work for publications were guys like Harry Bradley and Tom Daniel and people like that were thoroughly schooled and credentialed and diplomaed and all that. And I couldn't afford, hell, I could barely afford high school, let alone going to.
Right. So
I figured out a way to cheat on this whole deal. I looked at all the images that came out of places like Art Center and Center of Creative Studies in Detroit and all that, and I noticed they all had a style. I noticed they all had an approach. Now, it didn't matter who the artist was, but I'm thinking, okay, well, you have to have this look if you want to graduate. If you want to get a job in the industry, you have to have this look, this professional image, to the illustrations, to the designs and all that. A lot of people can design, but your presentation is equally, if not more important. And I thought, okay, well, if these guys have got this look, why don't I pretend that I'm an art center grad and draw like that? The way the shading was, the background vignettes and the angles and all that good stuff, and make it look like an art center project. That I was a thorough graduate and whatever, with honors, and I faked it. So by the time I started hitting up the magazines, it was a question of, so how long did you go to Art Center rather than did I go to Art Center?
Nice.
Oh, dude,
Nice.
Like Richard Petty once said, you got to cheat and eat.
Right? How long did you go? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. So what made you decide to put the brush down and go to this? Just because you get tired of the whole six-pack and a pat on the back and went, I want to get a little more credibility here?
I wanted to be a little more selective about the striping projects that I took on. And I got spoiled being in Bill's office, to be honest with you. I mean, I had my own air conditioner. I had, the room was all to myself. I had a couch I could relax on if I wanted to. And, I draw into the middle of the night. And, it was just a nice, comfortable way. I like this at the drawing board kind of thing, It's a matter of comfort. And I was able to further develop my style. And I didn't get hit on to do remote work the way pinstripers unfortunately still are, because they assume that you can travel just because you got a small little striping brush rather than a body shop and a spray gun.
Right.
And people take advantage of that. So I worked under the weirdest conditions doing people's race cars or street rods or what. I says, I don't need this. And I'm getting older. It's getting hard on the back. I don't know. Is this an easier life for me to do the illustrations and the design? And again, there was that prestige factor, because I noticed that my image, not only my self image but my public image, went up when I was introduced as an illustrator and a designer rather than a pinstriper. And that's unfortunate for the pinstriping profession that they're still saddled with that image. But I don't know, maybe it's the fine art thing, who knows? But people just put this on a higher plane. Now, if I can get them to pay a little more money for this, but I was able to charge more for the illustrations than the pinstriping. But the pinstriping provided a nice cushion. It was always consistent. It was always there. But the artwork and the illustrations provided the bedrock image that I was searching for.
And then you came out. You were west, and you came out a little more east, Orange County, mm-hmm. and started doing. You were still doing striping. You were still doing the custom mm-hmm. stuff with Petey.
Oh yeah.
And
even in Ventura, I was doing a couple of jobs up there.
Oh yeah. That's right. You were in Ventura.
Remember that purple OBS that's making around? Yeah, that's one of my old jobs up there. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about the Ventura. You have kind of bounced around Southern California.
Yeah, I was up there for a year. And when I was in Ventura, that's when I did my red and white, yellow Nova. With the Nova with the 56
with the chrome on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
the first time anybody done that. I spent 60 hours on that piece of art.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
Didn't you do it without an airbrush?
No, there was a little bit, but most of it was hand painted.
Yeah. You and I talked about that, and you want to try to keep it pretty much to a minimum. It was
because I wanted it crisp. I wanted the artwork to look like it was bolted on rather than painted on.
you bounced around, you got into the art world. Now, I mean, and you got to, so the magazines, how did the magazines reach out and grab you? How did that happen?
That actually started when I was in Utah. I sent a fan letter to Pat Ganal. He did an editorial back in '77 on mild customs, and I told him that was one of my favorite cars, this and this and this. And in fact, it's on my Instagram page. I actually showed the envelope. On the front half of the envelope, I drew the back half of a '58 Chevy. So when you get to the first page of the envelope, there's the front half, and you put the two together, and you get the whole car. And so
nice.
I drew in the Street Rider magazine logo and the address and all that stuff because I figured one way or another this is going to get his attention.
They're going to see this.
Yeah. So he printed the letter. Well, shortly after he got it, he actually called me up in Utah and asked if I would be interested in doing some work for Street Rider, and he gave me 6 pages of pen and ink stuff, which is what I was specializing in at the time, black and white pen and ink stuff on custom cars, the new trend, right? And that was in July '78 when that issue came out. Now that was my first magazine spread. Thank God for Pat Ganal, right? Then later, after I moved, is when I hooked up with the guys from Street Rider magazine. And so I started doing stuff for those guys. And they used to have what they call the showcase page where they have various artists every month. And so I had a couple of drawings in that. But anyway, from there, I started doing a lot of work for Street Rider. And then that's when the Carcraft guys, right around that time, was the same thing. John Bechtel, who used to be tech editor for Carcraft, he used to drop into Carter's all the time, for various projects. And they had one of their CC Camaros that they were working on that came in for Bill to do some touch up on. And that's when John Bechtel saw me at the desk scribbling away, just doing some stuff. And he basically gave me his card and says, hey, you need to look up Joe Martinez, who we became really good friends later on. And he was the art director for Carcraft.
Okay.
And so I went down and I took some stuff with me. And again, it was one of those deals where, how can I put this? It's like, where you been all my life? So I started doing a lot of stuff for Carcraft. That opened the door to the whole Peterson publishing cabal, and they ended up doing stuff for Hot Rod, and just, oh my God, I wasn't having it all the time. I went to Carcraft Street Machine Nationals on Peterson's dime got the loan of a car for 2 weeks so I can go see my mom in St. Louis and the whole deal.
I used to look forward to you had some layouts in popular hot rodding. I mean, you had stuff
PHR,
everywhere. And
And
I remember it's like, because some of them I have kept because the layouts were so stinking cool. And it's like, oh, what's Steve gonna do now? You know? And so you were kind of everywhere, and it was always cutting edge, goofy stuff. I always dug it because it wasn't the same old thing. And you'd take what would be, it's like, okay, who's gonna do anything with that car? And go, I want one of those cars.
Yeah, People Stare was my in at PHR, and that was 40. We turned into a really good tight friendship, and I was just devastated, when he had that accident out in the desert and stuff. Right. It was like, oh my God,
Yeah, he was your guy.
Yeah, he really was.
He was your guy.
We were going to do some serious promoting, before that happened, but
so you had the magazine. So now. I mean, it's kept making a transition. So something I do want to talk about is, since you're one of the fellow broke artist guys, is most of your designs, most of your custom stuff isn't stupid fly. Isn't the same old, you go to a fancy metal guy who's going to create this $1 zillion sheet metal to make it all fit.
Right.
It's not that kind of thing.
Oh, no.
You're the guy that goes, hey, the factory made this and they made this. Why don't we cut off part of this and glue it onto this? The dimensions are pretty close. We can probably trim this up a little bit, make it work. And that kind of became your calling card for designs here, is taking different models and creating something that was never really created. Exactly. Yeah. What brought that on?
Again, looking for a different way to express not just myself but car building, and knowing that the guys I was doing work for, they didn't have big fancy shops and expensive presses or all that stuff. And I mean, they were working with hand tools for the most part, and I'm just was speaking to the subject, speaking in a language that those guys can understand. Because, I'm envious of those Detroit types that, say like a Larry Erickson, for instance. I mean, he can come up with anything in the world because he knows he's got the staff that can clay this stuff up and English wheel this and that. I mean, granted, these days now the tools have really come apace, but a few years back that wasn't the case. I mean, these guys had to make do with what they had.
Right.
So I had to design to. I kind of want to say to their level, but I don't want that to sound condescending. I'm just speaking to the reality of the situation, and still try to be creative at the same time.
It was just cool because, again, it was stuff that already existed.
Right.
You go, did he have to make this molding and do this? Like, no,
Yeah, but that's a tradition as old as customizing.
But you just took it to another level.
With later cars, that's the only difference.
Is that, I guess?
Think about it. Back in the 50s when those cars were brand new and these guys are grafting on Packard tail lights and DeSoto grills, those were new components on those cars.
You're right.
So when you look at the new cars today, like we'll swap like a Chevy Nova and put a Corvair roof on it. Those are newer components. Or even brand new cars today, there's all kinds of swapping that you can do. They're new components.
So is that a lot of what inspired you then? Is a lot of, like the DeSoto, like, throwing that stuff in Mercs and all. I mean, yeah, you're playing with this and this. Let's put these together and because a lot of it worked. It was brilliant ideas. You go, that actually works.
Yeah, the idea is to make it look like the factory intended it.
Right. So like you just said with the Nova with the Corvair roof, let's make a Nova bubble top. I mean, totally.
Actually, I can't take credit for that. That was actually Scott Sullivan that came
But it was one of those silly things you go, why hasn't that been made yet? Because it's so, I mean, the dimensions are pretty close.
Yeah.
Could it work?
Oh, no, absolutely.
We got to try this thing here.
I mean, there's all kinds of, this I'm going to get a kick out of. Yeah, but it's a matter of looking to do something that's a little on the outre, different, why hasn't anybody thought of that type of design? Where is that now? I'm trying to find it. Here it is. This Mustang, for instance. Who ever seen a Mustang with a rollback top?
With a rag top. You're right.
And it's a natural because of that roof line.
Yeah, see, that's great.
It's not that hard for a fabricator to pull off.
No.
And I got that from the Volkswagen culture.
And you go, exactly. Absolutely. It's like, why hasn't that been done in a lot of different cars? Why is it just a Volkswagen thing? That's something people should
see. That brings
question.
up an extremely important point. And I've had guys tell me this before. If they're stuck into a particular genre, let's say like classic Chevys, for instance, and they only look at them one certain way, this thing's got to be restored, or this Malibu wagon that's done, with a Nomad bent. Right. Well, all I did was I put El Camino doors on this wagon because the wagon's doors are squared off at the top. Now and then widen the B pillar. All of a sudden, you've got an instant Nomad, which is something that Chevrolet should have done in the first place.
Right. So the ideas are still. Have you played with anything recent? Any of the newer cars where you go, hey, why isn't?
New Hot VWs. Actually, last issue, we did a thing on a brand new electric bus that they're coming out with, the ID Buzz. So I dolled that one up to look like a classic, split window bus with the skylight windows and the two-tone paint and the white walls and basically backdated it because by Volkswagen's own admission, people still want a bus, a traditional, especially when you look at the multi-figure dollar price these things are going for at auction. People still love the old traditional VW bus. And that's about as close as they're going to get to that thinking. Well, my drawing, I took it all the way. I says, okay, listen, people want a traditional bus, but they don't mind a brand new one as long as it has that spirit. That's what I was trying to capture with that. So yeah, it can be done.
So these different designs you do with mixing and matching pieces and parts, how often have guys actually created those designs that you put together?
Quite a few, actually.
You've seen a bunch of them actually done?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, anything that stands out that you would go...
I mean, I can't think off the top of my head. I mean, I did some stuff for Brian Wheeler, Steve Strope. I've done a few cars, for him. So, we mentioned his altered wheelbase Buick street funny car. That was his idea, but I put it on paper and did a couple little refinements design-wise for him. But pretty common
So
actually.
so you've seen a bunch of your stuff come
yeah.
to fruition where you go, how would this look?
That's half the fun.
So,
And the ideas that aren't getting built, I'm able to get my fantasies off on paper by doing just that, and then now I can post them on Instagram or online or whatever, and so I can get people to see it and think about the possibilities.
so is there anything going on right now that you know of
As far as
in your designs? If somebody goes, hey, I'm going to do this, and would you mind if I use this idea? Or
oh no, it's it happens quite a bit. I usually get a request, and then I won't hear something for a while, and then they'll update me later on. Hey, this is still on. We're doing it. So the stuff is out there. The projects are out there.
okay. So I'm looking at a lot of this, and it looks like you're not using the airbrush near as much.
Nah, it was kind of out of necessity and changing up the style a little bit. Sort of remember Harold Cleworth used to do all the oil paintings of the fine art cars that what they call the Porsches of Beverly Hills.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, the Mercedes with the
Yes.
okay, that guy, he did all that early stuff with airbrush, and acrylic on illustration board and canvas and whatever, Well, artist Nicola Wood came along, and she's doing all these oils with no airbrush.
Yes.
And stuff's just beautiful.
Amazing work.
I've met her
Absolutely.
a couple times, and man, I tell you what, she's just dynamic. She kind of bristled when I asked her if she was using an airbrush. I'm like, no, sorry, lady, I didn't know. It looks just like
I got
it.
punched by this woman artist.
Yeah. So Clearworth, I guess he decided to throw away his airbrushes and start painting like a real man. Like, he's using brushes and oils and changed up his style. He kind of stumbled a little early on, trying to find his way with that. But then later on, he started getting really good at regaining some semblance of his old style, and then it just took off in another direction. Well, right now I'm kind of going through the same thing. Not able to use the airbrush at the moment, and I always wanted to notice. I noticed that the guys with I mentioned the art center guys a while back. None of those guys use the airbrush. Unless they're doing a big tape drawing for the
Really?
walls. Yeah, they're all using pastels. They're all using chalks and whatever. And I'm like, it looks just like airbrush to me. I thought, if they can do this. So I've been giving it a go ever since.
So you were up for the challenge then? It's like,
yeah.
challenge accepted. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think you're going to go back doing airbrush stuff? Or are you gonna
Eventually,
stick
yeah.
with-
Oh, yeah. But I like having lots of arrows in the quiver. Lots of things to choose from, and not be limited. It'd be like if you're lettering, with a brush, and you're only using one kind of brush. Well, that one brush is going to work okay for lettering, maybe to a point, but then again, it's going to be lousy for pinstriping.
Right. You've had kind of a huge life here. What?
Just happy to be able to do what I'm doing, and the fact that so many people like it and are allowing me to do it and giving me my head, so to speak, turning me loose and allowing me to be creative. The one dirty secret of the hot rod culture and car culture in writ large is that this is it's a club. It's not a secret club, but you definitely have to know the secret handshake to get in. And you kind of have to. It helps if you know who some of the personalities are, and by that I mean, say like your Eskandarians and people like that, or Pete Chaporis, people that grew this hobby and this whole car culture. It helps to be familiar with who they are and what their work is, and knowing that and respecting what they're doing. You can speak the same language as these people, because where I come from, I didn't know anybody. It was literally a case of, especially with the magazines, being on the outside looking in and wishing, and oh man, God, that looks like fun, and it is. But if you don't know how to get from point A to point B, and if you don't bring the right mindset, that is extremely important. I just treat people the way I want to be treated. I try to do the best work I can out of respect for myself and the people I'm trying to get across to. So it can open further doors. I can allow to expand. Basically, I invented a career for myself. This wasn't something that was literally handed to me, but it was back door sure handed to me. I had a lot of favors and people taking me on and giving me a chance. Again, like I mentioned, Bill Carter, for crying out loud, building a whole office for me. Pete Santini, he saw something in me and he put up with me for decades, right? And that started from him just wanting me to do a few things for him, especially when he got his black Dually and he wanted me to design some paint for that because he saw the stuff that was coming out of Carter.
Great too.
He wanted a piece of that, right?
Oh yeah.
And just getting along with folks like that are willing to give me a chance. So I don't take any of that for granted. And I suggest anybody that wants to name for himself, whether you're an artist or not, just treat people nice. Be yourself. Don't put on airs, and above all, do the best you can. And hopefully be a man of your word. I know being an artist, sometimes that's a little hard to achieve just due to circumstances, because all us artists, we go through it. But we got the best of intentions.
Right.
That's what people want. Honesty. People want you to do the best you can. Treat the project like it's their own. Treat them with respect, like you want to be treated to. I think that's been probably the biggest secret to my success, if I can name that. Give an example. When I first met the guys at Peterson Publishing, especially, McMullen at the time was a little more laid back, but Peterson, all of a sudden, this is like a guy to go up to the elevator to the fifth floor, and this is the big time. This is Robert E. Peterson. This is a multi-billion-dollar publishing house. First of all, just to be able to walk in the office was scary in itself.
So you get to meet Mr. Peterson
once.
That's awesome.
It was kind of like in passing, but yeah. But it was still, if I didn't wear my professional hat and come across as not blatantly from the street that I was, trying to meet them halfway, because how can I put this? They want to be thought. They think of themselves on a certain plane, and if I can meet them in the same area, we got some common ground here. Then they'll treat me with respect that I think I'm earned, and treat me accordingly. Like I mentioned earlier about people thinking that I went to art school rather than did I go to art school. That was an algorithm.
How long were you at art school?
Yeah.
So talk about some of your artwork. Some of your posters I've seen are just, we use the term nuts, but I use it with love.
No, I know.
So there was the one you were kind of talking about a little bit earlier for the one you did for Larry. That was completely over the top.
Oh,
is that probably one of the hardest jobs you've ever taken on, as far as
by far
the busiest? There was so many things.
Every car, every little bit component that's on the borders and stuff is a different car, a piece of a different car. There's no repeats on that thing. This is when I was first getting to know Larry. I was intimidated. Larry Watson, for crying out loud, right? And he kept giving me photos of stuff that he wanted included in this Bellflower clock poster. One secret to that clock poster, I had no idea what the actual signage looked like in front of the place. So I made it up out of a Bob's Big Boy sign and just adapted it to say, clock, whatever. And so I faked it on that. But Larry kept pulling out these pictures of cars that he wanted included in this thing while I was laying it out. Finally, I had to muster up the courage to tell him, okay, look, stop. We've got enough here. We got more than enough to get through this. And that was also one of the first time I was doing a painting. Because before that, everything was like this, marker on paper.
When I first met you, you had just finished that up.
Yeah.
You had just finished that project. That's a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take you to do that?
9 months, start to finish, and I didn't work on anything else.
9 months. Larry
Larry paid me a bit at a time, to keep me going and stuff. But I couldn't do anything else because it was such an involved ordeal. And the way my office was all set up, the way everything was all laid out, it'd been real hard to break that down and go work on something else. And, my mind was in that mindset about getting it done. So, yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, it was
but it helped me in my career.
Coolest thing. We did a few things for Larry, and they're all pretty high-end type of deals. And
the pink Brougham and the purple Grapevine Chevy and that.
Yeah, you've had some great pictures that you've done stuff with.
It was an honor just to work with Larry Watson.
Have you ever had any work in like a gallery or a museum or anything like that before?
We did a Peterson exhibit. In fact, it was one of the last exhibits they did before they closed to remodel the place. But it was a one-man show that they allowed us to do down there. And a lot of people show up. It was a pretty big deal.
How long was it in there for?
About a week.
Okay, so a little while then.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You got a lot of positive feedback?
Yeah, quite a bit more than I expected. Yeah, we did a special poster for that one with that yellow 62 Impala cruising into Harvey's broiler.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. To think about that, it's like yellow. Yeah. It's like okay.
Yeah, that was for that.
So you did that just for that deal then.
Well, that and the Rodder's Journal, they were going to run some.
And then you made posters out of that one.
Yeah, we made a handful. I think I still got some somewhere.
Yeah.
Randy Lawrence, and bless his heart, he was the photographer for the event. So he shot stuff from beginning to end, and what they call the step and repeat, with the signatures and stuff behind it, and we're shaking hands. And,
right.
That was a big deal for me,
That's awesome.
Yeah, Cat Morris and the rest of the Morris family, they helped set all that up. So, I mean, be honest with you, there's not a lot to my story as far as that sort of thing. I mean, I won't get into the halls of fame or all that jazz. That kind of goes with the territory. But it's a matter of it's a simple life that I lead. To be honest with you, where the kind of projects and stuff that I do, sure, that can be pretty important. But the basic nuts and bolts, I just sit in a room and draw cars.
See, okay, you were talking about that issue. What was it, Hot Rod or Cargo, whatever it was that Glenn did back of that Camaro. I was just losing my mind.
I know.
And,
we all were.
And I look forward to seeing your stuff. You had articles come out in Signcraft.
Mm-hmm.
There was different things, and it's like, oh God, what's this one going to be about? Flip through, and it's like, soak it all up. And,
yeah, right.
And I didn't copy anybody's things like that. I
didn't
do that. But oh God, huge influence. You go, oh, I already know what I would do with this. And, you're already changing what you were going to do to go this direction with it. It's like, I liked what I was going to do, but no, let's go brighter colors, or let's do this. And
remember Tom Hoover's Showtime funny car?
Absolutely.
The Vet?
Yes.
Okay, everybody remembers that car, but nobody remembers the one before that, the Monza. That's the one that Youngblood did the Showtime lettering on the side of it in neon.
The neon.
That's the first time I ever saw anything like that. Blew my mind.
Yeah.
But again, that's the kind of stuff that I was looking for too, Stuff that just blew me off my chair.
Oh, and you were that guy. You always, it wasn't a step ahead. It was like just making your own steps. I guess we'll put it that way. You created your own steps. I wasn't even looking at what anybody else was thinking about this. I had no idea that anybody was looking over my shoulder. I'm just trying to express myself. And I knew some of it was going to end up in the magazines or on a drag strip or whatever. That was gravy. But I was just personally bored. I was looking to express myself. It would be kind of like if I can liken this to, like, say, a musician that comes along with a whole different sound, that it's the same instruments, the same musical notes, but he's just rearranging this stuff in a completely different way that blows everybody's head off. Right.
I'm trying to be an original here. I don't want to copy anybody else. I'm influenced like we all are, but.
So what is your you got any goals? You got any goals, things you want to accomplish now?
A new car. No, I got my eye on just one Eldorado I'm dying to grab.
An Eldo, nice.
Yeah.
Have you had an Eldo yet?
I've had a Coupe de Ville. I'm driving a Seville right now, and I don't know. I've always loved Cadillacs.
Well, I'm not talking about goals for cars, but anything. I mean, you gonna sit down and try to do oil paintings with this stuff, or anything like that?
Oh, I've done some fine art. That's not that. Oh, I was gonna bring the picture of the first painting I ever did, that red and white 56 Buick. In fact, I posted it on my page.
Okay, we'll show the picture then.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What is it?
It's a 56 Buick Century convertible.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in a little white frame, and it's acrylic on illustration board. But it's the first time I did a painting and not a marker and pencil drawing or whatever, on paper. So,
a lot of fun. Brush on paper. That's a challenge.
That was the first one I did. Then I did Watson's big poster after that. So.
Okay. So what is your goal now? You got anything you're looking at that you want to do that you haven't done yet that you go, I want to try this?
You know, this is going to sound really pathetic. No, I don't.
No?
I'm already doing what I like. I'm already doing what I want to do. I mean, if I can just do more of it and, you know, more consistent market for especially the commissions and the fine art, that's what I'd really like. You know, a lot more of that. But not as far as, I don't know, it's not like I want to go run for office.
Right.
But I don't know, I just love what I do too much. And it took me a long time to get here, and I'm still not done. I'm almost selfish in that regard, you know. This is too damn much fun. And a sense of self-esteem, which I never got when I was at home for a variety of reasons. But getting into this line of work, getting this kind of recognition, getting this kind of love and admiration from a lot of people I never even met around the world and stuff, you can't beat that.
Right.
That was a major goal, and I knew I achieved that.
Stevie, thank you for sitting down, sir.
Absolutely.